Hi, I'm Vanessa and I love bad Star Trek. I will be the degenerative Polish bone disease osteoporogy that is season 2 of Star Trek's Next Generation. Today I'll be talking to you about an episode called Unnatural Selection, an episode that is as clunky and unfocused as me attempting to wear heels higher than an inch tall. I just have giant feet that I could row myself to shore with if I was stuck in the middle of a lake in a rowboat with no oars, which is a situation that has never happened. Unnatural Selection tries to spin a few dramatic plates, and they come crashing down as the episode progresses, as well as breaking canon in a way that's never explained. Unnatural Selection is another example of the Next Generation taking an original series episode and making a worse version of it by ripping out the guts of what made it effective in the first place. The original series episode, The Deadly Years, took a concept that could be very gimmicky and gave it gravitas by touching on fears that are universal, such as fears of aging and mortality. After beaming down to a planet, Captain Kirk, Bones, Spock, and another crew member become infected with a disease that accelerates aging. As the episode continues, their memories deteriorate, their tempers shorten, and Kirk struggles with an increasing sense of helplessness. As his aging mind betrays his ability to be captain, eventually he becomes so unable to clearly cogitate, forgetting commands that he gave just seconds before, that he ends up having to forfeit his command. Kirk is devastated by having to step down, and in his anger, he actually lashes out at Spock, who he accuses of betrayal, because it would be he that takes over as captain. The disease has consequences beyond just wearing makeup and hunching over. Powerlessness and shame over having a lack of agency are often part and parcel of the aging process. Having to accept entrance into the last stage of life is a frightening prospect. I do find it entertaining that Bones becomes more southern as he ages.
I'm not a magician, Spock, just an old country doctor.
Yes, as I always suspected.
If the disease progressed for him any further, he'd be fully whittling on a porch on a rocking chair, debating over whether to hold a hootenanny or a hoedown that Friday evening. The first dead guy that they find looks exactly like my dry elephantine ankles. So the Next Generation took this premise and simply thrust it onto Dr. Pulaski. This could have been an opportunity for us to see past Dr. Pulaski's steely exterior and get acquainted with her frailty. And being as pragmatic as she is, what circumstantial and emotional loose ends would she feel compelled to tie up before facing her inevitable death? But instead, it's just a problem to solve, which they do right before the episode ends, in this way that seems clearly designed to wrap up the episode with Dr. Pulaski surviving. At this point in season 2, it should be noted, we don't know Dr. Pulaski very well, beyond putting up with no one's crap and being a bit of a bully towards Data, because he's just a machine, as she is so fond of reminding him.
Data.
What?
My name. It is pronounced Data.
Oh?
You called me Data.
What's the difference?
It does know how to do these things, doesn't it? Forgive me, Mr. Data. I'm not accustomed to working with non-living devices. Your service record says that you are alive. I must accept that.
This is another failed original series experiment. This dynamic looks as though the writers tried to recreate the relationship that Spock and Bones had. Bones would say something shitty about Vulcans.
Well, what I'm trying to say is you saved my life in the arena.
Yes, that's quite true.
I'm trying to thank you, you pointed-eared hobgoblin.
And then Spock would say something shitty about humans.
Oh, yes, you humans have that emotional need to express gratitude.
And everyone would have a great big laugh about how they're both racist. The weird message one might get from this is that the end of racism comes from just everyone being racist. The problem with this is that Data can't hit back with snark. He's not a snarky guy, for one. His demeanor is disarmingly genuine. And for 2, he'd never feel compelled to take humans down a peg because his greatest desire is to be more human-like. So when Dr. Pulaski calls Data machine over and over again, Data responds very politely to someone attempting to undermine his desired goal of an identity. It's just bullying, and it's really cringy to watch. And I think it contributes to why people in the fandom don't like Dr. Pulaski. Another way this episode could have been written was for Dr. Pulaski and Data to rely on each other for survival. The TV trope called fire-forged friends comes to mind, where 2 people go into a dangerous situation not being friends, may even be frenemies, but through having to trust each other, they form a bond. But in this, because Data is impervious to this aging disease, he's never in danger in the first place. And because he was unable to save Pulaski, neither of them is able to help the other or form any kind of closer relationship. Like other bad Next Generation episodes, this doesn't mean anything, and it makes no sense. After Picard tracks down a ship called the Lantry, who sent out a distress call, the Enterprise makes contact with their view screen where the bridge crew sees that the crew of the Lantry was infected by a mysterious illness that sped up their aging process, killing them within days. And when we hear that the Lantry made a stop at a Federation research outpost called the Darwin Station, where researchers are also suffering from the same sickness, except for some children who are the product of genetic engineering and are sealed off from the general population of the research center. This episode spends a weird amount of time telling us, the audience, how perfect they are, that they're super smart, telepathic, telekinetic, completely resistant to disease. Marsha. No one mentions the huge glaring issue that this presents, which is that in the Trek timeline, as a result of the eugenics wars that took place in the 1990s, where humanity was under siege by genetically engineered superhumans, genetic engineering wasn't just banned, it was very illegal. Julian Bashir in Deep Space Nine was discovered to be genetically engineered to be super smart and athletic. And when this became public, Bashir's parents cut a deal where Bashir would stay in Starfleet as a doctor, but his parents fully went to jail for 2 whole years. Well after Bashir was a grown-ass man. So the Federation doesn't take kindly to people breaking this law. And Khan Noonien Singh of The Wrath of Khan, an Indian man played by a Hispanic man, and then played by a white guy. He was also genetically engineered to be a superhuman, and he was a villain. So Trek has a very long history of not looking fondly at this practice. So what is going on here? Why did this episode contradict Trek's own lore? Who knows? You basically just have to forget about it or you will get an aneurysm. There's just Federation-sanctioned genetic engineering going on in this episode, and that's it. That's the first thing in this episode that doesn't make any sense. The next is Pulaski's wildly ill-advised dedication to putting herself and the crew of the Enterprise into danger. When she gets the news from a researcher on Darwin Station that the Cabbage Patch Kids are immune to the aging disease and should be rescued from the station before Darwin's staff all die so someone can take care of them. Without much planning or purpose, Dr. Pulaski decides to beam one of the genetically engineered kids aboard the Enterprise for examinations with a force field and some shrink wrap on them. Why can't they just download the kids' test results and medical background from the research station? Because we have to have a plot, damn it. We gotta create stakes somewhere. So they beam this kid aboard, and what happens next is basically like biting into ice cream and tasting spaghetti, because they beam aboard someone who is decidedly not childlike.
We have one 12-year-old male encased in number 6 styrolite.
A trick! Transporter reverse. One moment.
What kind of trick is that, Worf? I'm not familiar with the grown-ass man in his underwear encased in plastic trick. Is that like a Klingon tactic or something? Like, why? Apparently, one of the features of these genetically engineered children is that they mature super fast, and it's entirely disconnected to this aging illness. It's just a standard feature.
A child this mature? We could be looking at the future of humanity.
And I'm not sure what the advantage of that is exactly. It's just really random. Is this yet another example of, look, we can objectify men here too? But they keep calling him a child, so that's actually kind of gross. They just created this wrinkle for no reason. Because he's telepathic, he doesn't have to speak aloud to discuss things with people. So not only is he kind of naked, but he also doesn't say a goddamn thing. It honestly feels as though they were just trying to get around paying the actor more by finding a way around giving him any lines. Anyway, the plastic casing is getting in the way of Pulaski doing more tests. Again, not sure why she would need to do more tests that the Darwin station didn't already do. And she goes, well, I gotta get him up and conscious to prove that he is truly harmless to the Enterprise.
I want to free him from the styrolite.
That seems rather risky, Doctor.
I can do no further tests until he's animate.
So Geordi suggests that she takes a shuttle since the environment would be isolated from the rest of the ship, minimizing risk of exposure. After Picard being like, why exactly are you making yourself a guinea pig? Like, I don't get it. She says it's for the kids, and it's just part of the job to take a risk like this, and she's just gonna do it. Whatever happens, happens.
I'm prepared to take that risk. Someone has to breathe the same air he breathes, to touch him. I'm volunteering to make that test myself.
Such science! Wow! This is when she buddies up with Data, who pilots the shuttle as she runs these tests. So the transporter engineer beams the child onto the shuttle. Dr. Pulaski frees him from his freshness guaranteed package, and oh my god, she gets the virus like immediately. Who didn't see that coming? So rewinding a bit, as Pulaski is prepping the shuttle, we get the piece de resistance of things that make this episode so fucking confusing. The fact that all of this is set against a backdrop of Dr. Pulaski's employee evaluation by Captain Picard. That's right, he's not sure that she's the one best suited for the job at this point. So while she's putting her life at risk for these kids, Picard calls her old boss while he's in his ready room and says to him, if she's so great, why doesn't she work with you anymore?
Tell me, Taggart, if she served you as well as you say, why did you let her go?
I see you haven't run into her stubborn streak yet. As soon as she found out about an opening on the Enterprise, she put in a request for transfer. Knew your service record backward and forward. Apparently, she's been an admirer of yours for some time.
This employee evaluation part just seems like Picard being an asshole, because this episode seems to establish that Picard and Pulaski butt heads because they're so alike.
Perhaps the two of you aren't all that different.
What do you mean?
Let's just say you both have well-established personalities.
But instead of Picard handling this maturely and having a face-to-face conversation to iron out differences, as he should with a chief medical officer, he patronizingly recites Federation statutes at her and goes behind her back to farm opinions from others. I think that's an effectual communication, and Picard has to be smarter than that. But here, he's just a cranky old fuck that demands that people do as he says and pathologizes people who don't. Back to Pulaski going all Dorian Gray. The woman who plays Dr. Pulaski, Diana Muldaur, seemed to be directed to do nothing more than be old for some brief moments on the view screen while in quarantine on Darwin Station. The aging appears to be purely a physical thing rather than a psychological or emotional event. And so the small blip of her in makeup going, "Ugh!" are a far cry from the gut-wrenching journey that we went on the original series episode, The Deadly Years, with Captain Kirk. The only kind of sad thing was Pulaski saying, everybody should just leave because there's no solving this problem. I'm stuck here. See you later.
The children will be condemned to live out their lives in isolation. The quarantine of the Darwin station must be maintained forever.
But of course there was a solution. It turned out that the genetically engineered kids' immune systems were so aggressive that when it came in contact with something innocuous, the kids managed to alter its DNA, making a common cold quite deadly. So she got old. Picard used some of Pulaski's DNA to basically give her a factory reset in the transporter and use that to filter out the aging issue. My favorite part of the episode is Data and Riker going through her drawers to look for DNA, but it just looks like a panty raid. What are they doing in her drawers? Why wouldn't you look for a hairbrush in a bathroom? Whatever. She goes through the transporter and she's cured just like that. What was the point of putting Dr. Pulaski through all this? Was it just listen to Picard or you'll shrivel up and die? Is this some slick way to poke fun at women's insecurities around aging, ignoring that it's caused by a society that worships youth? Who fucking knows? No one gets closer to her and no one gets closer to understanding her. But I guess her evaluation goes okay, even though she kind of haphazardly added to the problem instead of helping to solve it. What could possibly go wrong is not a very scientifically sound approach to a risky situation. This episode is yet another that frames scientists as single-minded towards their goals and willing to endanger themselves and others in the pursuit of proving a hypothesis, which doesn't describe the scientific process whatsoever. And frankly, Pulaski saying that part of a doctor's job is putting themselves at risk is kind of a destructive narrative, considering the overworked, underpaid, undersupplied ER staff, nurses, and doctors around the world treating COVID patients. Someone being labeled as a hero often means they're also disposable. Healthcare workers deserve so much better. And guys in their underwear deserve a line or two, maybe even a name. Till next time, I guess.